Three of the most common questions I get about accessory dwelling units can all be answered with the same like data hack that I have. So I'm just going to teach you this trick, and it's kind of complicated. Whenever I try to explain it over the phone or in writing, it's so much easier to just show you on a screen. So we're going to run through and we're going to answer three questions. Does my city allow ADUs, or like is my city ADU friendly? Two, how do I find builders in my city or architects in my city? You know, it's you want to know people who specifically have experience in your jurisdiction or your region. And then three, how long does it take to get an ADU permit in my city? And basically, these are questions that the answers change over time, and there's 450 jurisdictions in California or something like that. So it's very hard to know the answer for every single jurisdiction. Having said that, I have a data tool that makes it really easy to figure out and kind of hack together a solution. This is based on the fact that in California, the Department of Housing and Community Development, that's the HCD, they're like our state's version of HUD, if you've heard of HUD. The HCD requires cities to make annual progress reports about their housing. And those annual progress reports are called APRs. They are public data. And so once a city submits its annual progress report to the state will then upload that data to its data set, and it is publicly available. Now, in actuality, cities tend to be a year behind because they don't report until the year is closed. And then they take a couple months to put the report together, and then the state takes a month or two to upload the data. So you're always looking at the past, but that's what data is. and compared to not having any data, old data is still better than no data. I would also say when you look at smaller jurisdictions, they don't have as much staff to do these reports. And so a lot of the time, smaller jurisdictions will be farther behind compared to larger jurisdictions. Or sometimes jurisdictions just don't like their reporting responsibilities, and you know, some jurisdictions are just sort of bad students, and some are apple polishers sitting in the front row submitting their reports very promptly. So it kind of depends. Results may vary, but there's data for a lot of jurisdictions, sort of 2018 forward. And 2018 forward is a great time set for ADUs because most of the legislation went into effect in 2018 and forward. So it's a really great way to see ADU numbers. Okay. If you have any questions about how to use this data or how to use other data sets that are publicly available, post it in the comments and I will try to answer. Here's the trick. I will put this link in the description, in the video description below, to the HCD's website, specifically the annual progress reports data. However, in the time that I have been using this data set, they have changed the URL and the structure of their website multiple times. So if you cannot find it using the link below this video, just Google HCD annual progress report data. There you go. And it's the exact same links. They pop up right away. Great news. So when you go to this annual progress reports data dashboard, you can actually download the raw data over here. It is a very large file. It is a comma separated value sheet, a CSV, like a spreadsheet that you can then import into Google Sheets or Excel, but it is huge. So you know it has too many rows for a lot of older software or free software, and it will slow down a lot of machines. It's a bit much. If you're a data person, it's great, or if you can kind of query it without opening the file, that's great. But if you're a newbie, honestly, I'd recommend avoiding that. I personally have a cut down version that's just the ADU data, so it's a lot faster to manipulate, but I don't share it with the public because that would slow me down. And then I do share it with my private community. If you join, there's a link in the description below too if you want to join as a subscriber. But honestly, you can do everything with this free data, so I will walk you through how to do it with the free data set. What's cool is if you scroll down, the state of California has created a really cool 16-page dashboard that lets you visualize the data in a much handier way to answer some very common questions. So right now, this is kind of an overview. The second page is like, okay, how many permits how many units have been submitted for, entitled, permitted, completed. There's all these cool things. You can do all these cool things by looking at like what year you want to look at or what jurisdiction you want to look at. It's all kinds of cool whizzy stuff. So this is a key figures slide. The third slide is about, I think this is the construction slide. Yeah. So this is the slide where the real magic happens. Here you can see it's telling us how many units have gone from permitted to completed in all of California. And it splits it by 2, 3, and 4plex. It shows mobile home units, single family units, and ADUs. Aha! It also breaks it down by MI and some other cool stats, but that's not what we're here for. We want to answer a question like, hey Ryan, how long does it take to get an ADU permit in Los Angeles? Okay, we're going to go jurisdiction. Do not choose county unless you want to see an entire county geographically. Jurisdiction is what you want, even if you're in the unincorporated county, jurisdiction, and then you pick that unincorporated county. So we're going to use jurisdiction. We're going to type Los Angeles, and we're going to pick the city because that's the query that I'm trying to answer. So now you see this data has changed to only be about Los Angeles City. And of course, Los Angeles is quirky. It has a bunch of jurisdictions within it, like Santa Monica and Beverly Hills and West Hollywood and San Fernando, right? These are technically not Los Angeles City, so they will be excluded. We are only going to see Los Angeles City results in this, yeah? What you're going to do is click on the ADU bar, and now it's only looking at the ADU data for permitted to completed. And then you're going to click this View Data button. And there you have it. We have a full list of ADU permits in Los Angeles since 2018, and it's down to the street address. Like you get to see the actual address. It's all public information. So you see Los Angeles is big, so it's a big list. There's tons and tons of ADUs. I actually just heard the 2022 data hasn't been submitted yet, but in 2022, people submitted 7,000 permits for accessory dwelling units in Los Angeles. Pretty crazy. Over 7,000 permits in Los Angeles alone. Okay, so one thing we can do is just check, hey, how fresh is this data? What are the most recent submitted dates? And you click the submitted date column twice, and it will now sort it by submitted date descending. And here you can see, okay, we've got something submitted as recently as 12/29/2021. So this includes data for all the way through the end of 2021. That kind of tells you how fresh the data is. Then you can say, okay, show me projects that have actually been completed. And so, yep, we've got some projects completed as recently as the last days of December 2021. And then you can kind of say, hey, how long did it take for these projects to get permits and to actually build? Here you go, okay, this project submitted in July 2020. They got a permit December 2020. And then they were completed a year later. This project submitted on April 5th, 2021, got a permit by June 4th, 2021, and was finished by December. That's great, right? That shows, okay, in 2021, people could submit a permit application in April and get a permit by June, and then they're built and finished by the end of the year. What a great turnaround, right? Here, January 6th, 2021, April 21st, 2021, 3 months, real standard. And you can do this more systematically. You can export this data set and run calculations. And you could do a lot of research this way. But it's a great way. Los Angeles actually has a ton of data. Some of it's also a little dirty, so don't get too bogged down. But it's got a lot of data, and so it's a great example to use. Having said that, a lot of the time people are calling me from really small towns, and I just don't know. And I'll look at the number of permits that town has actually processed, and I'll say, hey, their average is 90 days, which is really standard. And per capita, you have a large number of ADUs per capita. So even though it's only maybe 12 ADUs since 2018, that's a lot considering how small your town is. Conclusions like that. The other really common thing is somebody will be in a very small town. Like I live in Napa, right? So we'll put it in Napa. And somebody will say, Ryan, do you know a builder in my town in Napa? Now, I happen to know builders in Napa because I live there. But a lot of the time, I'm like, that is a tiny town. How do you expect me to know a builder who specializes in ADUs in your tiny town? Here's the trick. You go to this dashboard and you go to the completed dates. And here you have a list of the addresses where there is a completed ADU. And you probably know your town. So I can scroll down this list real fast, and I know some of these streets, like King. That's a really nice street. I think that's in Alta Heights in Napa. So if I want kind of a nice high-end ADU, I might go knock on the door. 14. I know knocking on doors, talking to strangers is scary, but I might go check that out and say, "Hey, neighbor, I am building an ADU. Can you tell me, did you have a good experience with your builder? Would you recommend them?" And a lot of the time in a small town, people are pretty friendly. This is, I know this ADU. This is one of the first ADUs I ever saw on West Pueblo. And it's if I knocked on that door, I could find out the contractors they use. This, I think, was an owner build. So that would be a very interesting one, right? And so you can kind of go through the list of existing ADUs, and what better way to know that this builder has finished an ADU and done a good job other than talking to a homeowner who is standing in a completed ADU. Anyway, that's my philosophy. Go knock on doors. If you don't want to knock on doors, always consider using my sponsor, Realm. They'll help you find vetted GCs in your area, and there's a link in the description below if you want to do it that way. For more of these screen share videos where I just teach you the tricks that I use to analyze properties and look up data, check out this playlist. And if you've watched this far, you probably figured out I am obsessed with housing. I know where all the secrets are, so you might want to subscribe and join me on our adventure to fight the housing shortage in California and the country.